And we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show, ladies and gentlemen. And it is once again my pleasure and my honor to introduce the founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and, of course, ABC News contributor, Bill Kristol. Hello, sir.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
I'm fine. Happy Passover to you.
To you, too.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's talk about, first of all, the troubling, more than troubling, reports confirmed, if you will, by John Kerry yesterday that these flyers, and we've seen the flyers, although we don't know who's putting them out, in that one city in Ukraine, telling Jews that they have to register as Jews, of course, reminiscent of Nazi Germany and days gone by. What's your take on that? I mean, is this real? Is this part of the history of part of Ukraine rearing its ugly head?
Well, it could be, or it could be Russian distance. It could be the Russians doing it. It could be the Ukrainians doing it. It could be the Russians trying to make people in the West think the Ukrainians are rearing their, a somewhat ugly, the head of a somewhat ugly history, or whatever the right metaphor is there, and sort of turning the West against Ukraine. I think it's, the lesson for me is this is what happens when countries invade other countries, when you get this level of turmoil, and it's why you do want to preserve. It's why you don't want countries invading countries. You don't want countries destabilizing other countries. It ends up not being good for anyone. Not good for the Jews, obviously, but not good for any civilized people in the region.
Yeah, I had Alan Dershowitz on earlier, and he brought up an interesting point. The U.S. has been critical of Israel for that. I think that one vote in the General Assembly that did not go along with the criticism or support of Ukraine, if you will, and he pointed out that he wants Obama to lay off Israel for that, and the State Department to lay off Israel for that, because he said Netanyahu's first responsibility is to his people and to the Jewish people, and there's a history there in Ukraine, and obviously there's an atmosphere in some regard, as evidenced by these flyers. So Netanyahu and Israel voted the way they felt they had to vote.
Yeah, the thing that struck me about that vote is, it would not have happened in other administrations where there's a trust between the U.S. and Israel, where the U.S. would stand by Israel when they were under attack. And if there was even a close call, even if you had private reservations, maybe about U.S. policy, an Israeli prime minister would have said, you know what, we're going to stick with them. And Netanyahu doesn't feel any obligation to do any favors for Obama, nor should he, given the way he's been treated personally, really, in this case by the president, but also the way the state's been treated in this recent, farce of carrying the peace process and blaming Israel when it was perfectly clear it was the Palestinians who pulled the plug on the peace process by deciding to go to the UN as they had pledged not to, and then making a big deal out of a totally phony building of some apartments, and within sort of natural expansion within. You can call it a settlement, but it's not a settlement. It's a suburb in Jerusalem. It's always going to stay, not even a suburb, really, just part of northern Jerusalem. It was always going to stay in Israeli hands under any map. So, they used a pretense to go after Israel. They can't very well then ask Israel to, swallow hard and cast a vote they're not thrilled with casting. And that gets to the broader problem you and I have discussed this before. This is what happens when you have a weak president and your allies lose any confidence in you, and they start watching out for themselves, and you can't ask them, hey, we need your help on this vote or in this area. You just become, weakness begets weakness, unfortunately. And this is just a minor instance of that in the case of President Obama.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He said yesterday, Obama, that he wasn't getting too excited about this agreement with Russia and the people in Ukraine that Kerry touted yesterday. I wonder what those phone calls are like between Putin. And I've talked about this with several people, and Elliot Abrams actually said that he doesn't think those phone calls are a good idea, especially with the frequency that they've been occurring. And, the results are not good after those phone calls from an Obama standpoint. So why does he keep participating in them?
Well, Obama has a great faith in his ability to persuade, I guess, and he thinks he can persuade Putin or something. And I really respect Elliot's judgment, and he's been at very high levels of government and seen cases where obviously personal diplomacy can work, a president leaning on someone else or talking tough to someone else can work. And I think in this case, as you say, the evidence seems to be in that it's these phone calls don't tell Putin, yeeks, I've got a kind of tough president there who might do something, I've got to pull back. They seem to often tell Putin, you know what, this guy is kind of equivocating, and I think I can just go ahead and do what I have to do.
Well, you have a great piece from the other day at the Weekly Standard about the secret fight, as the headline says, over Russia in the within the Obama administration. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the Obama administration was having an internal debate about whether to allow Russia to fly a couple of new planes, apparently with much better sensors, spy equipment on them over the U.S. They do fly some planes already under the Open Skies Agreement. We fly planes over their country to make sure there's not some sudden troop movement or that they're not violating arms control treaties and the like. It's the Open Skies Treaty. It's been around for a while. But to get permission to upgrade your sensors and to add them to new planes, you need to get permission. And the State Department just wants to give permission to the Russians. And defense and the intelligence communities, the Defense Department, they're really appalled. And I heard this from someone who's close to the Defense Department, but it's not, particularly conservative or ideological. He's in the Obama administration, and he said, we can't believe this. This is not a close call. We do not want the Russians using sensors with, I gather this is all classified, obviously, this degree of resolution or spying ability over our over the continental U.S. and over our military bases. And this shouldn't be a close call. You just tell the Russians, no, keep using the planes you're using. You just can't use this new spying capacity. And instead, the State Department is so desperate to, I guess, get along with Putin that they want to say yes. And apparently they had a meeting of what's called the Deputies Committee, the sort of number 2 level people in the departments last week. They couldn't agree. Defense and the intelligence agencies were against. So now it goes up to the Principals Committee and the President. We'll see what he resolves. But the people in defense and in the CIA are pretty worried that Obama's on the side of the State Department on this one. It really would be pathetic to do a favor for Russia at the time,
Sure.
Now of all times.
You would think. Let me ask you a couple more before we have to go in about 3 minutes here. There's a move underway. New York was the latest to sign on to this. Governor Cuomo signing a bill. D.C. and now I think 9 states. What they're trying to do here is circumvent the Electoral College and really go against the spirit of the Constitution, if not the letter of the law, and saying that our Electoral College representatives, delegates, will vote all together for the person who wins the popular vote. All of them will. So, I mean, this is a move afoot. I'm sure it'll be challenged in court. But what do you make of this?
I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think enough states will go along with that, and I don't know if it could be enforced even on electors. But it is pretty startling, and it's a good example. I mean, instead of fine, if they want to make a case for popular election of presidents and constitutional amendment, they should make the case. But the left these days doesn't make the case, and they don't go the kind of normal route of changing the law if they don't like the law. They think of gimmicks and evasions and ways to get around the normal popular debate. This is all happening kind of quietly. I guess they think they'll do better in a popular vote than an electoral college vote. But I'm really struck by the way in which they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, now about Hillary. The coverage of the royal baby, the granddaughter or grandson of the Clintons. When the Bushes announced their daughter was pregnant in 2012 on Good Morning on the Today Show. Later that night, NBC did 30 seconds on it. Nothing from CBS, nothing from ABC. Last night, it was royalty. This was the second, coming, if you will. And do you believe that this is going to, help her tremendously, or not have any real effect at all?
Yeah, I don't think it'll have any effect. I congratulate her. As someone who just became a grandfather myself recently, I think that's nice that she'll have that privilege and that pleasure. But I do think to the degree that it looks like the media wants to anoint her and treat her like royalty and report on all the births and all the goings on and with the kids and all. I'm not even sure that helps her. I don't think Americans like that much. They have a certain fascination, of course, with certain families,
right.
families. But I kind of think, especially now in 2016, awfully serious times, let's pick the person who's got the best record, who really has the best agenda for the country. Obviously, if you're a liberal, you prefer probably one of the Democrats.
From your lips, Bill, to the voters' ears, and Mazel Tov on your grandchild, and much success and good health to him or her.
Him. Actually, 3 little boys now, one set of twins, and then another little boy. So
that's great.
Much.
That's great. Bill,
that's the Passover, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bill Kristol, ladies and gentlemen. Give Me 5 is next.